Good evening. Welcome in this virtual webinar platform. On behalf of the team management of Biodiversity Webinar Series 2, I, Dr. Pompi Ghosh, Assistant Professor and Head of the Department, Shivabharati Mahavidyalaya, Kapgari, Jhargram, welcome all of you and our today's resource person, Dr. Revati Lakshmi Madam, and all other dignitaries and participants.
Good evening, madam.
Welcome, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a nice opportunity, ma'am.
This lecture will be followed by discussion and question answer session, and then Dr. Das will announce and tell something about next program and next webinar. And before entering the main program, I would like to say some words about our webinar, and this is a long back history. That is from last year, that is 2020, since 12th September, two departments, that is my department, Botany Department of Shivabharati Mahavidyalaya, and another Botany Department, Dr. Das Department, that is Lalkar Government College Botany Department, in collaboration with another NGO, Dristikon Organization. We have started the webinar series, and each and every Saturday this program is going on. So people are from different colleges, and they are from students, scholars, teachers, professors, retired persons, and so many, irrespective of their age and designation. We every Saturday gather here to exchange and gain knowledge, and sometimes views also. All of us are doing this job voluntarily. So far, we have been conducted 30 lectures for Biodiversity Series 1, 10 lectures for Environment and Development Series 1. And after completion of this Biodiversity and Environment series, one 3-day long national level conference has been organized by us. And now Biodiversity Series 2 lectures and Environment and Development Series 2 lectures are going alternately each and every Saturday. So this is our 7th lecture of Biodiversity second Series 2. We have one permanent Telegram group, and I am requesting all of you to join, if not joined yet, in this Telegram group. Now, me and Dr. Das are not alone, but we have so many scholars and personalities with us to run the program successfully. So, without wasting time, we have to enter into the main program. So, Dr. Das, please welcome and introduce our today's respected resource person. Dr. Das.
Yes, thank you, madam. Thank you for your information regarding the webinars. Today's resource person is Dr. S. Revati Lakshmi. Ma'am, today's topic is conservation of pioneers of ecosystem. You know, pioneer, that means starting phase, and different serial development takes place in the ecosystem. So that is, I think, very nice topic. Madam is assistant professor of botany. I am another Janaki Amal College, autonomous, very famous college, Sivakasi, Tamil Nadu, and organizing many seminars, symposia, conferences, and so on. And through these programs, I just have joined this college for academic purpose and attended many programs. Ma'am did her MSc and MPhil from same college, that is Aya Nadar Janaki Amal College in the year 2006 and 2007, and PhD in the year 2016 from Bharati Darshan University, famous university in South India, in the departments of botany. Ma'am's topic in the research, that is PhD program, was exit to conservation of Hoya YT. We are saying Bengali people in North Bengal, Hoya means there is one parasitic plant, Hoya, or in Bengali form Porogacha. So why is interesting plant? During my botanical survey of India study, I just gone through some herbarium specimens of Hoya in Central National Herbarium Botanical Garden. So her topic is exit to conservation of Hoya YT subspecies Pelniensis, Katian Matthew, and Brachystelma glabrum hook egg endemic plants through in vitro technology. Her supervisor was Dr. M. V. Rao, Department of Plant Science and Professor of Plant Science, Bharati Darshan University, Tiruchirappalli. Ma'am actually did her work as project fellow from 2007 to 2010, and after that as a research scholar from 2010 to 2015, and after that joined as lecturer part-time basis from June 15 to December 15. After that, as assistant professor ad hoc basis in the same college, Aya Nadar Janaki Amal College, autonomous, postgraduate department is there from December 15 to February 18. After that, assistant professor regular basis at Anjak, this is same college at short form from 2018 March to till date. Ma'am's award, Maruti Pandian Award from MK University, Project Assistant Award UGC, Bharati Darshan University 2007 to 10. Ma'am's publication, many publications in different plant science branch, particularly micropropagation, phytochemical analysis, biodegradations of paper, dyes and biogas plant effluents, organogenesis, oxidative stress, on cymopsis under lead and chromium toxicity, in vitro propagation, efficient rhizogenesis, phytochemical characterizations and antioxidant activity study, properties on osimum, canam, and so on. Ma'am presented 23 papers in various conference and online conferences and offline seminar and conferences. So much more that I actually mentioned here. So now the time is ma'am will deliver the lecture on conservation of pioneer of ecosystem. Ma'am, please start your presentation. All are eagerly waiting here.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
for gathering in this virtual meet. My special thanks goes to Das sir because he only arranged for this meeting and asked me for presenting this wonderful webinar. And next, I'd like to thank Madam Pompey Ghosh, Secretary of Tistan Trust, for giving me a nice opportunity. Without adding much, I'm moving to the topic. So I'm sharing my screen. Sir, is it visible?
Yes, madam, yes. But go to full side mode.
Oh, oh yes, yes. Is it okay now, sir?
Madam, okay, but that is not full slide mode. If you go through the full slide mode, that is better to visible.
Oh, oh. Oh, sorry. Is it okay, sir?
It's
Yes,
okay.
madam. Yes, madam, yes. But go to the first slide, madam.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Proceed, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, all. Today I'm here to present some of my views on conservation of pioneers of ecosystem. Many of us have a doubt that what is pioneers? Pioneers are nothing but the plants. As a, now, without plants, none of the ecosystem can be exist. So that's the major reason I have chosen this topic. So many of the informations may be new, maybe a familiar one, but some of the informations what I'm going to share will be a new one. Let's have a look on it. So, can anyone say what is environment and what is ecosystem? Is there any relationship with us? I think instead of a monotonous webinar, let it be an interaction one.
Madam, first, it is not interactive one because it is a mixed group and the
Okay, ma'am. Okay, no problem. Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Then I will continue. Okay. So the environment is nothing but things which are around us, and ecosystem is are the things which is made up of plants, animals, and several organisms. There is biotic and abiotic organisms which are making us a whole. That is called ecosystem. So ecosystem, each ecosystem, we have so many ecosystems like pond ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, and so on. So whatever starting point, that starting point is called a pioneer. So pioneers are nothing but the plants which make each and every ecosystem fruitful one, or otherwise which make it as a useful one to the society. Let's have a look on the components of ecosystem. Whatever may be the ecosystem, that starts with a habitat. Habitat in the sense a place where a small population or otherwise a group of population lives. So population is a group of living organisms. That may be a plant, maybe an animal, or maybe a microorganism that are grouped together as a population. The next part of the ecosystem is community. Community is all the populations or otherwise some group of populations. For example, in a forest, the group of trees, group of some trees, for example, sandal trees. Group of sandal trees are called as a sandal population. Like that, so many populations are present in an ecosystem. So that populations are grouped together as called a community. So this community varies from one ecosystem to another ecosystem. One ecosystem in the sense, for example, a community which exists in the alpine forest cannot be continued always, cannot be the same in tropical ecosystem, tropical forest. Okay? So that's why the community may differ from one region to another region. So next component is major ecosystem. Major ecosystem in the sense the communities are grouped together along with the abiotic or otherwise non-living factors surrounding that particular area is called ecosystem. So that means the interaction between the both living organisms and the non-living organisms which are presenting in a particular area constitute the major ecosystem. So this ecosystem varies from one place to other place. Similarly, this the size of the ecosystem also varies from one region to another region. Next one is the biome. So biomes and ecosystems are more or less similar, but the biome is the place or otherwise region which differs in a combination of environmental characteristics, environmental conditions. So for example, a similar region will show different varying temperature, moisture, light, and other physical factors at different monsoons or otherwise during different climatic conditions. So each and every factor, each and every these temperature, moisture, light, and other physical factors have some direct influence influence on the quantity or otherwise number of species, number of living organisms which are going to be present in that region. So that constitutes that environmental factors and their influence over the living components which are present in an ecosystem as a whole will be termed as biomes. Okay. These are different ecosystems which are present all over the world. There are ecosystems like tundra, taiga, grassland, deciduous forest, chaparral, desert ecosystem, and then desert scrub ecosystem, savanna, rainforest, and then forest. So these are all the different biomes which are existing all over the world. So mainly the number of or otherwise the distribution of species which existing in each and every biome is depends upon the moisture content as well as the temperature, because these two factors plays key role in the distribution as well as maintenance of the living organism in an ecosystem. So then species distribution with an historical perspective. Uh, you may have a doubt that why we are discussing about species distribution here, because species distribution, that is the distribution or otherwise the number of living organisms which are existing in an ecosystem may or may not be constant. It may differ from one region to another region. Sometimes it even may differ from continent to continent, depends upon the during due course of time in the sense in earlier days. For example, all the botany as well as zoology people may be familiar with the geological time scale. So in earlier geological time scale, we may be familiar with some plants and some other animals, but that animals are not existing nowadays. So there is some reason behind that. So let's have a look on it. So continental drift. This continental drift is the major cause for the species distribution as well as the extent of so many species nowadays. Okay. All are familiar with the dinosaurs. So dinosaurs are the reptiles which exist in so many million years ago. But nowadays they are not present now. But these extinction of not only dinosaurs, so many animals and so many plant species have extinct because of this continental drift. So how these continental drifts occur? So these continental drifts are due to the tectonic plate movements. So tectonic plate movements are the major reasons for the extinction of so many animals. So here I have listed some of the animals which gone extinct due to the tectonic plates, or otherwise simply called as continental drift. Because what are the continents what we are familiar nowadays, or otherwise what we have telling like Asia, Africa, South America, and then Australia are not developed in a single day or not developed in a year or so, because they have developed as a result of so many years of continental drifts. So these continental drifts and tectonic plate movements are the major reasons for the extinction or otherwise presence of so many plants as well as animals in the world. So there is some close relationship between these tectonic plates as well as distinct taxa. Distinct taxa in the sense, for example, a plant may be present in a plant. For example, a plant is reported in northern India. The same genus may be reported in southern part of India also, but the species which is reported in North India will not be present in the southern part of the India. Okay. So what might be the reason in the sense that these tectonic plate movements are the major cause for this distinct taxa. Distinct taxa in the sense the same genus may exist in so many parts, but none of the species belongs to that genera will exist in more than one place. Okay. That type of plants are called as distinct taxa. Okay. So these distinct taxa distribution is mainly because of this plate tectonics. These plate tectonics have major impact on the distribution of so many plants, so many distinct taxons, as well as they are major reasons for the extinction of so many species. Apart from the anthropogenic activities and so many factors we are telling for the plants as well as animal extinction, but in earlier days, that is before industrial revolution and all, this is the major reason for the distinction for the occurrence of distinct taxons as well as for the extinction of so many plants and animals. Okay? So these plate tectonics are the major cause for the drifting of so many continental as well as oceanic plates, including Eurasian plate. Once in the earlier days, Eurasia is considered as a single continent, but now Europe is a separate continent and Asia is a separate continent. So due to this change in plate tectonics, there are so many species which are not present in India, not present in India. Similarly, so many species which are exist earlier. That is before so many million years, we have so many rich biodiversity apart from what we are having now. But we lost so many plants and also as well as we lost so many animals because of these tectonic plates. Okay? I'm saying this, the extinction that occurs before industrial revolution or otherwise before so many anthropogenic interruptions, these tectonic plates have major role on the extinction or otherwise the distinct disjunct taxon distribution of the plants as well as animals. So these are the informations what I have obtained from the plate tectonic theories. This theory explains very clearly about the distinct distribution of taxons. That is, there are two different land masses which have same type of plants, same type of genera, but none of the species belongs to that genera exist in either of the regions. Okay? So, for example, in India, we have two major high endemism points. High endemism points in the sense, two hotspots we are having. One is Eastern Himalayas and another port is Western Ghats. Okay? So, I'm citing one example for this. For example, the genus Impatiens has 75 species in south and 100 species in northern Himalayas. That is, from the genus Impatiens, 75 species are present in southern part of the India, that is Western Ghats, and 100 species are existing in northern Himalayas. But none of the species are same in either of the places. That is, no one species is similar in Himalayas as also in Western Ghats. Okay? So these type of presentation or this type of extinct of the species are called as distinct taxa. These type of distinction is mainly because of the tectonic plates in earlier days, but nowadays so many factors are influencing for this distribution of distinct taxa. So another example for distinct genus is Rhododendron. So in Rhododendron, there is a presence of only one species in southern part of India, but there are so many species. There is around 100 species are present in Himalayas, but none of them are similar in Gangetic plains as well as in southern part of India. So next, move on to the biological diversity. So biological diversity is some of the total species, which are total species including plants, animals, microorganisms, and other organisms which are present in the edaphic organisms. Edaphic organisms, this is the organisms which are present below the soil are also considered as the biological diversity. So there are three levels of biological diversity. That is genus diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. So genetic diversity or otherwise genus diversity. That is there may be difference in species distribution because of the difference at the levels of genus. For example, So many varieties of cereal crops, millets are available in India, but there might be a probable difference in the types of cereals as well as millets which are which are existing in the northern part of India as well as southern part of India. Similarly, there might be some differences which exist within the region in the sense for example, for a plant which existing a plant or otherwise a food crop which existing in the West Bengal may or may not be present in the Assam. So this is what called as genetic diversity. These genetic diversity, this existence of genetic diversity might be due to the environmental factors because in earlier days uh, we used to take millets, mainly millets as our food crops. But nowadays millets are not frequently available. Not frequently available, or otherwise we can say it is not so much cultivable. So now we are paying so much attention to the cultivation or otherwise conservation of millets because millets are the plants which are having most millets are considered most because of their nutritive value. But what we are using nowadays, that the cereals what we are using nowadays are having deficiency in nutrition. So we are going back to the history, reinventing about the informations which are available about the millets and what are the probable mechanisms to cultivate millets. So this is the reason. Okay, genetic diversity is the major cause. Genetic diversity is not only influenced by the epigenetic reasons, it also due to the anthropogenic activity and other environmental factors which also play some impact on the genetic diversity. So the next level of diversity is species diversity. Species diversity always exists under ecosystem and other environmental factors have major influence over on it. So in earlier days, we used to have so many coral reef species and so huge quantity of tropical rainforest as well as huge quantity of species on temperate rainforest. But nowadays, these coral reefs, the tropical forest, uh, number of plant species as well as number of animal species which are existing in the tropical as well as the temperate forest are drastically reducing. So each and every individual has some role, otherwise we have our own responsibility to reconserve it. So this is the species distribution. There are around 1.7 million species which are existing. Actually, this is not a new data. This is an old one. But just, just imagine how this data is collected during 1995. But this data is now drastically reduced. We have so many. Actually, the dark boxes are the described species. Described species in the sense the species which are identified, and so many unidentified species are existing in the world. So these unidentified or otherwise undescribed species may also have so many benefits. We may also derive so many benefits from these undescribed species. Okay. So described species have one level of certain level of benefit to us. Similarly, undescribed species also have more influence over the environment as well as for the benefit of the society. So here this table shows the number of threatened species by major taxonomic group. I'm not going to relate it in a detailed manner because of there is a lot to discuss. Okay? So vertebrates, invertebrates, and plants and other organisms like lichens and some other symbiotic organisms are also under this threatened list. So this is the IUCN Red List categorized during 2001. Okay. So before 2001, there is no categorization like critically endangered or vulnerable. But there are nowadays most of the critically endangered plants, vulnerable and endangered plants which are categorized by IUCN are from India. This is the point what we have to focus, otherwise what we have to be considered. most of the critically endangered or vulnerable species are vulnerable species cited by IUCN are from India. So just imagine how we are far behind in conserving. Why we are paying sudden interest in this biodiversity? Is there any need? Yes, certainly we have to show some interest, not interest. We have to show our much intention to the biodiversity because we are having limited space. Because in earlier days we used to have some joint family, but nowadays we are in a nuclear or otherwise isolated. A family consists of only 2 or 3 members. In earlier days, we used to live in a small home that consists of so many members, like Chachaji, and our relations, brothers, sisters, so many. But now we are living in a isolated world, just like one or two members only in a family, or more than that, we have only 3 members in a family. For that isolation, we need so many space for our um, materialistic satisfaction. That is, we are exploiting the land. That means we are exploiting the diversity. Okay. Almost we have exploited so many land masses for our construction purpose. So we are having only limited space for conservation. Otherwise, we are having only limited space that constitutes plants as well as animals. So, of course, what this limited space, otherwise how this limited space only available for the biological diversity, or otherwise for the plants and animals in this is because of our need, population explosion, food, shelter. Apart from these, so our human activities like pollution, air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, these are the these are the factors which lead to which push the biodiversity into a limited one. So that is why we are showing some interest, otherwise we are showing sudden interest on biodiversity. So we may think what's going to happen with this. Already we are facing so many climate changes and so many problems due to climate change. So if we don't show any interest over this biodiversity and biodiversity conservation, ultimately we will be the losers. So that is the major reason we are showing interest in biodiversity. The mass extinction. What is mass extinction? So many people won't believe there may be mass extinction, or already the mass extinction occurs. But there are so many evidences that the mass extinction of species occurs. Uh, Anil Anthaswamy 2018, here they reported that insects have mass extinction due to the loss of biological diversity. You may wonder, some of the butterfly species are present, always they show their presence only during the autumn season. So that butterflies got extinct due to the loss of particular plants or particular species, because they have their food as pollen grains. So if a plant is not present in that particular region, if a plant, or otherwise if a plant extends from that biological region, or otherwise if a plant is completely eliminated from a biome, then what happens to that butterflies? What happens to the other insects which depend, or otherwise which rely on those type of plants for their food and some other purposes? So this is the reason we may think, we may thought what will happen because just removing a plant. Certainly we may have a thought like that. Nothing will happen because of removing a single plant, or just because of removing a single tree. But this is the major impact what will going to happen. So just because of that single tree or single plant, an entire genera, that is entire genera of a particular insect will lose its habitat. So because of the loss of habitat, the entire insect will go into extinction. So that is what mass extinction. We may thought that a single plant or single tree may won't cause any major impact on our ecosystem, but this is what going to happen because of removing a single tree or a single plant from a region or otherwise from a small place. Okay? So that is why we have to pay much attention to the pioneers, that is plants which are existing in the ecosystem. So what are the probable reasons for these mass extinction? In the sense, loss of habitat, that is what we discussed earlier. And apart from that, there are so many human activities like deforestation. So deforestation, in the sense, we are doing it in a purposive, we are doing in a purposive manner without knowing the fact what is going to happen because of that huge extraction, huge exploitation of the plants. And there are some other reasons like introduction or otherwise unknowingly or otherwise accidental introduction of some exotic species. Here I am citing one example. This is the bird species Hematone sandiana. Actually, this bird is not exist nowadays. The extinction of this bird is due to accidental introduction of Culex mosquito. So this mosquito is reasonable for avian malaria. Avian malaria, in the sense, a type of malaria which is exclusively which is exclusively affecting the birds. That is why it is called avian malaria. So these Culex is responsible for the avian malaria, and because of the spread of avian malaria, the entire hematone bird got extinction. So the exotic species, actually this Culex is not a new one to Hawaii. Actually this bird belongs to the Hawaii island. Okay? This Culex is not a native one to Hawaii island. Okay? So just accidentally. I couldn't trace the reason or otherwise I couldn't trace the event which is reasonable for the introduction of the mosquito. But this introduction of the exotic species are also contribute more to the extinction of so many birds as well as so many animals, and also to the plants. Like this Culex mosquito, most of the botanists are familiar with Parthenium plant. Hope all are familiar with Parthenium. Parthenium is an exotic species. Exotic species in the sense that plant is not native to India. So that plant is introduced during the Second World War. Due to the introduction of Parthenium, so many cereal crops got extinct. Similarly, there are so many plants which are exotic and they may be introduced during the World War, or some exotic species are used as a bioweapon also. So these introduction are also playing role for the mass extinction. So apart from that, environmental pollution. We all know about the environmental pollution, several types of environmental pollution. So each and every pollution is contributing much to the loss of so many plants, animals, and some microorganisms also. So a major impact of these pollution is global warming. Okay, because of the temperature rise, we have very limited species in the temperate regions. Okay? As the temperature rises, the plants, exclusively plants have, and the number of plants or otherwise the distribution of plants in the temperate forest got reduced. So the global warming is the major cause nowadays in the species extinction. So apart from these trade, anti-poaching staffs are paying so many attention about this, so many attention on this illegal trade. But apart from these, this illegal trade for turtles and skin of some animals are also happening. So these are the major reasons. Though the government and several NGOs are taking more attention and more activities in controlling these illegal trade, but it is happening. So each and every individual must show some attention to this. And then CITES. CITES is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. That is wild animals as well as floras. some of the plants and some animals are exported legally as well as illegally. So each and every government has to make some agreements. Actually, it is available. But apart from that agreements, there are so many things which are happening beyond the script. That is beyond the limit of sight. Beyond the limit of sight, there are so many plants and animals are exported, and so many plants are being exported because of their usefulness in the sense so many wild plants are having medicinal properties. So wild plants are wild, or for example a wild species may not be available, or it cannot be cultivated easily in a normal region. So that is the reason for this illegal trade. So the government is showing some attention, but if it shows more attention, that will be useful for us, useful for conserving the cultural diversity. So here I have listed a few plants which are under site list because of their usefulness. So Rolfia serpentina is the only plant which is existing in India with huge potential in the sense we can use this plant starting from a normal and starting for a normal in anti-inflammatory usage to huge anti-cancer activity. This is the plant which have more potential, and it can't be beat by any of the plant species which is existing which exists throughout the world. So that is why this plant is exploited always. This plant is more oftenly in trade illegally. So that is why it is kept under site list. Similarly, Nepenthes cassiana. So all of us know that Nepenthes is an insectivorous plant, but it also show some ornamental value. So similarly, Papilipedium specigara. This is also an important orchid, which is of most ornamental as well as aesthetic value. So that is why this plant also exported illegally. Similarly, Acanthidium silenthes. So this plant is also an orchid plant. It is also imported illegally. So it is also in trade illegally. So that is why these four plants are under site listed plants. I have listed only few plants, but there are so many plants which are illegally exported or which are illegally exported from India. I have given only a few examples for this. So what is the value of biodiversity? I'm not going to deal it in a much detailed manner, because all of us know biodiversity has agricultural value, scientific value, medicinal value, industrial value, and it also have more value on ecological services. What will happen because of this loss of biodiversity? We may think that nothing will happen to us, but think about the poor people. Think about the people who are in the hill slopes, or think about the tribes which think about the tribes. They wholly depend on the natural resources for their food, shelter, fuel, and so many things. Just think about the tribes who are living in the hill slopes, or otherwise who are living in the deep forest of the nations. They are the people losing their whole life because of this biodiversity. We are in a sophisticated life system, but they are the people who is losing a much and more because of this biological loss. And apart from that, we have so many direct impact on our economy also. Okay, because around 8,000 edible plants are nowadays we are using, but these 8,000 species are having a good nutrient quality. Is these 800 edible species are in good nutritional value? We think no. Some of these plants are having nutritional value, but most of them are not in good status of nutrition. So this lack of nutrition is just not only because of anthropogenic activity, it's mainly because of the loss of biodiversity. And the biodiversity also have some, not some, so many medicinal values. Here I have listed only two plants. These two plants belongs to Indian region, which have more potential than any other plant which exists in the world. Just have a look on it. This is Digitalis purpurea. This is the plant which is which has cardiac glycosides. Okay, so cardiac glycosides are the medicine which is exclusively used for the ailments of heart. It's for heart diseases and so many heart problems. The compound which is extracted from this plant is uh, used worldwide. So, but this plant is mostly, otherwise, this plant is more widely available in India. So, similarly, Catharanthus roseus. This is the some of the in some of the regions of India, it is considered as a weed, but it is the most potential plant having anti-cancer activity. So, this plant is useful for uh, this plant is usually useful for extracting so many medicines for different types of cancers, starting from starting from blood cancer to breast cancer and ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. So many compounds are extracted and reported for the treatment of cancers. And what is the ecosystem value because of this biodiversity? Ecosystem services, in the sense, if a biodiversity is flourished in a better way, we have proper atmosphere, proper water supply, we may get pure air, we may get pure water, and there is no requirement for RO and so on. So if we have a better biodiversity, otherwise if we have a biological diversity of species, what we have in what we have some uh, 30 to 50 years back, then we are the blessed ones. So this is what the government as well as so many NGOs are aiming to recover it. And then cultural diversity in the sense the diversity of plants and animals because of the human lifestyles. So our lifestyle also shows so many impact on the diversity of ecosystem. So some 10 to 20 years back, we won't show much intention on terrace gardening or home gardening or something on cultivation of plants. But nowadays, people are showing, not all people, but some people like people who belongs to education area and some entrepreneurs are showing interest on plants cultivating plants in the way of home gardening or kitchen garden or a terrace garden. These practices also show some improvement in the biological diversity. So I request if some of the proposers in this virtual meet may also have interest in home gardening. Please don't stop your interest. Please continue. This also may show some impact on conservation of biological diversity. Okay. We won't do. It is not necessary it's not necessary to go and make an agreement with NGO for conservation, or it is not necessary to go and take a test tube and go and culture for conservation. Just a daily activity, just watering a plant, just bringing a small sampling into your home. It is also a cultural activity which helps a lot in improving your biological diversity. So this is what happening nowadays. Okay? These are all the human interruptions which are playing major drastic effect on this biological diversity. So apart from this ecological footprint in the sense, because of the usage of so many electronic items and so many household things, we are spending so many carbon to the environment. So the quantity of carbon which are utilized or otherwise which are emitted by us is termed as ecological footprint. So we have to show some attention on this. Just like carpooling, we have to reduce the quantity of electricity usage. But nowadays it is not a possible one. But in one or some other way, we have to show some attention in reducing the utility of electricity. So that is the major part which is showing, which is contributing to the carbon footprint nowadays. So we have to pay some attention. So if we pay some attention to this, we can reduce the impact which is caused by the ecological footprint, or otherwise in turn the carbon footprint. So next, India's biodiversity, small plants. So we have 18 mega biodiversity in mega biodiversity countries in the world. We are one among them. So there are 34 hotspots, and we have two: Western Ghats and then Indo-Burma. Indo-Burma in the sense northern Himalayas. These are the two major hotspots which is present in India. So what's the major criteria used for classifying a hotspot? Is it must contain more than 1,500 species of vascular plants. Vascular plants in the sense higher plants. So similarly, it has at least 70% of its original habitat. That is, it has to be. It is a native species of. It must be a native species of India, or otherwise, whatever may be the hotspot. So in India, we are having 242 plants, 16 amphibians, 16 reptiles, 14 fishes, and 2 birds and 2 mammals, and 61 new invertebrates. These are all the species which are come under these hotspot regions. Okay? Not all over the India. These are the particular group of plants as well as animals which are present in the hotspot regions. That is Eastern Himalayas and then Western Ghats. So for about 70% of the total geographical area surveyed so far, we are having 8% of the plant species of the world. Okay? So we are contributing 8% of plant distribution to the world. So what are the dominant species which are existing in India in the sense? Poaceae. Sorry for the disturbance.
It's okay, madam.
Okay. So Poaceae is the family which has more species, more species in India. Next to Poaceae, Orchidaceae is the major family, and the next to Orchidaceae, Leguminosae, and then Asteraceae. These are the dominant families which is existing in India. Then I look on the ex situ conservation. Okay, this is the not only possible way, but this is the most possible way which is useful for the conservation of plants. For ex situ conservation, tissue culture is the one of the way to conserve plants in an ex situ manner. So ex situ conservation in the sense it is not possible for all the plants to conserve in its own region or otherwise in its own place. Okay? So for that purpose, we are choosing ex situ conservation. Okay? So for ex situ conservation, tissue culture is a technique which is most widely used all over the world for conservation. So actually, Peter H. Raman is the person who introduced this technique initially. This conservation can be done in two ways. There is in situ conservation as well as ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation includes conserving the plants in botanical gardens or otherwise experimental gardens. And then in situ conservation in the sense conserving the plants in its own ecosystem. Own ecosystem in the sense the place where the plant is under threat or otherwise where the plant is in endangered condition and so on. What are the possible options for conserving or otherwise preserving the plants in the sense, if a plant species in dead stage, or otherwise if we are getting a plant in a non-living condition, then we can preserve it in herbaria, or otherwise we can have it as a museum specimens. If we are having a live specimen, then we can go for ex situ conservation. That's the better way. So in situ conservation, we have to get proper permission from the forest authorities and so on. So in situ conservation is a tedious process and it is not that much flexible nowadays. So that is why people are showing much interest or otherwise much attention in ex situ conservation rather than in situ conservation. So what are the possible ways in the sense of someone is asking, sir, I couldn't get your point.
Madam, continue.
Ma'am, Jitendra sir, request. Can we find PDF of slides?
PDF of slides for?
Okay, sir. I will share it. I will share it, sir. I will share it. Okay. So the possible ways in the sense we can conserve the plants by growing it in botanical gardens or make it as an arboretum, or otherwise we can maintain it in zoological parks and zoos. Okay. First two for the conservation of plants and the second two is for the conservation of animals. So otherwise we can store some parts of the plants like pollens, seeds in a like germplasm conservation. We can conserve the pollen grains, we can conserve, or otherwise we can cryopreserve it. We can cryopreserve the pollen grains or seeds and sperms and eggs for animals. Similarly, embryos of plants as well as animals. And then several tissues and organs can also be conserved in a way of cryopreservation. Okay, that's the only possible way for conserving conserving a plant or otherwise animal in an existing portion. Okay. For example, some plants we may get in a fruiting stage. Some plants we may get in a vegetative stage. Similarly, some parts of the plants may be available as a whole. Some of the endangered or otherwise endemic plants may be available in a seed form. So whatever may be the availability, we can conserve it in that form as a cryopreservation material. So that is called as biobags. And the role of pisciculture in ex situ conservation. So nowadays, ex situ conservation is a common practice. It's a common practice all over the world, because with this tissue culture practice, we can raise so many number of plants in a limited space as well as limited time. So this is the major reason why this tissue culture is practiced all over the world for the ex situ conservation, or otherwise simply the conservation. Because of this practice, we can conserve so many plants, or otherwise we can raise numerous plants, so numerous quantity of plants in a limited space, limited time, and without having any genetic variations. Also, we can cultivate these plants, as well as disease spread may also be reduced because of this tissue culture. These are the reasons why tissue culture is being considered as the major technique for the ex situ conservation. So this is the figure. All of us know about the different parts of the plants. Each and every part of the plant can be utilized for conservation, just because of tissue culture. Why each and every part can be used in the sense? Because of the totipotency nature what plant is having. Just because of their cell area and totipotency, each and every part of the plant can be cultured. So because not all the organisms are having totipotency nature. Okay? The animals are having pluripotency nature. From a single part of an organ or otherwise a single part of the animal, only that part will be regenerated. But in plants, whatever may be the available part, whether you may have a single leaf, you can generate a new plant. So that is the reason why this in vitro regeneration or a tissue culture technique is used for the conservation purpose. So there are three major techniques which are available for the in vitro propagation, plant propagation. One is micropropagation. Here it also can be called as meristem culture, and then another one is organogenesis, and the third one is somatic embryogenesis. Uh, what are the major advantages in these tissue culture techniques in the sense automation? There are so many automation processes are there for cultivating or otherwise propagating these plants, and then cost effective one. So if we purchase a plant, we have to pay so huge amount for 25 or 30 plants. But in tissue culture practices, we can spend a small amount for raising nearly a hundred number of plants. Okay? So that is cost effective, madam. That is the major reason for choosing tissue culture or otherwise in vitro technique for conservation purpose. Similarly, fermentation culture is also available for the for raising huge quantity of plants, and then production of antigens. Medicinal purpose also this in vitro technology is used. Organogenesis. Organogenesis is there are two possible ways: direct organogenesis and indirect organogenesis. Direct organogenesis is possible for the plants, or otherwise possible for the different parts of the plants which are having some uh, what can I say? Which are having meristematic portions. Okay? Direct organogenesis is possible for the explants or otherwise for the plants which have meristematic portions. Okay? So if you have a meristematic portion of a plant, then you can choose direct organogenesis. Otherwise, you can choose indirect organogenesis. Indirect organogenesis in the sense with the available explant, you can induce a callus. From that callus, we can develop shoots as well as roots. That way of raising a plant is called indirect organogenesis. Similarly, somatic embryogenesis. Somatic embryogenesis in the sense generally embryogenesis, that is development of embryo or occurs from the zygotes. But in this in vitro propagation, we can generate embryos from the vegetative parts of the plants. So that is why it is called somatic embryogenesis. This also can be occurred by either direct method or indirect method. Direct method in the sense, if you are having a plant pot which is having embryogenic cells, predetermined embryogenic cells. Predetermined embryogenic cells in the sense, if you are having some what can I say? If you are having some reproductive organs like fruits, flowers, then from that portion we can directly get the embryos. There are different stages of embryos. After that stages of embryos, we can easily regenerate the plants. But in but in zygotic embryogenesis in the sense, the normal way what the plant is using for the development. In normal plant, a plant is getting fertilized. After fertilization, it forms zygote, and then it has to pass different stages of zygote. After the development of cotyledon, it has to go on expansion, maturation. After the maturation of seed, it has to go for desiccation process, and there might be some dormancy period. After these all stages only, germination of plant will occur. But bypassing these four stages is possible only by in vitro propagation, because we can easily pause these maturation, desiccation, and dormancy period. Because in normally generally tree species are the plants which are having more dormancy period. So somatic embryogenesis is the only possible way for conserving so many tree species, because we can easily bypass these stages. So by bypassing these stages, we can hardly consume nearly 7 years of growing a plant. So this is the major reason why the in vitro conservation, particularly somatic embryogenesis, is used for the conservation of tree species. And what are the factors that we have to show much attention in conserving, or otherwise in conserving the or growing the plants? In the sense, we have to show much attention on the pH of the medium what we are using, and then we have to show attention in sterilization, that is using autoclaving, and we have to show much attention in the physical environment what we are going to provide, that is temperature, photo period, that is in turn how many hours we are going to provide light, and what is the intensity of light we are using, and about the relative humidity at which we are growing the plants. So these are the factors we have to show consideration. Apart from that, we have to show much consideration in choosing the medium. So though MS medium is the most commonly used medium, SH medium, WPM and LS and B5 white medium and modified MS medium. Okay. So these are all the mediums apart from MS medium. These are all the mediums which are used for the cultivation of tree species, exclusively tree species. But if we want to conserve a plant which belongs to the herb category or shrub category, we can easily cultivate the plant using mere MS medium. But if we are having a plant species which belongs to tree category, then these are the possible mediums which show better advantages. Otherwise, these are the mediums which are more advantageous over MS medium. And we have to show some attention to the medium components also, because for the tree species, apart from the macronutrient composition, micronutrients are the major reasons for the better growth of tree species. So we have to consider attention on the quantity of macronutrients as well as micronutrients what we are going to supply for the plant growth. Okay. So it can't be regularized in a single day or in a week. It has to be standardized through trial and errors. So similarly, we have to show much attention in the vitamins also. By losing any of these vitamins, we can't get the probable results. Probable results in the sense what we are aiming. So similarly, we have to use some organic acids. These organic acids are much helpful for the somatic embryogenesis process. Then similarly, we have to show attention on the carbon source what we are using. Okay. So carbon source like sucrose, glucose and fructose. Okay. So though sucrose is the most commonly used carbon source in the nutrient medium, glucose and fructose are advisable for growing orchids. Okay. So the orchid conservation is mainly based on the mainly starts from the orchid seed germination. For the germination of orchid seeds, instead of using sucrose, we can use glucose and fructose. Okay. So because seeds are the materials, because the seed material can't utilize sucrose directly, because sucrose is the product which can be stored by the photosynthetic parts. Photosynthetic parts in the sense leaves can be leaves and other aerial parts of the plants can be easily utilize sucrose, whereas parts like underground parts like corms, tubers, similarly seeds can utilize only monosaccharides, not the disaccharide or otherwise a complex carbon source. So it is advisable to use glucose and fructose for orchid cultivation. Similarly, we have to show much attention while maintaining the pH. It should be 5.6 to 5.8. And similarly, the gelling agent. So though agar-agar is the most commonly used gelling agent, we can use phytogel or gelatin. So these phytogel and gelatin are the gelling agents which show some crystal clear appearance. Okay. So with that appearance, we can easily observe is there any phytochemical exudates are there. Okay. So in the agar-agar medium also we can visualize the phytochemical exudation, but these phytogel and gelatin is more advisable if we are showing much attention in the phytochemical part. Then plant growth regulators. What are the common plant growth regulators used in the sense of IEA, IBA, 2,4-D, 2,4-3,5-T, NEA, dicamba, picloram. These are the plant growth regulators. So I'm saying plant growth regulators, not hormones, because hormones are the chemicals which are already present, or otherwise which are synthesized by the plant itself. So we are providing exogenously. We are providing additionally these supplements or additionally these substances. Okay? So that is why we are saying it's a plant growth regulator. Plant growth regulator in the sense we are providing these compounds for regulating the plant growth, for regulating whether depends upon the need. What's we need? We need first callus in the sense we have to provide oxygen. If we need shoot in the sense we have to provide cytokinins. So that is why they are called plant growth regulators. Depends upon our need, we are providing these compounds exogenously. So these are the different types of auxins which are used in plant tissue culture technique for the callus growth as well as cell suspension culture. Okay, cell suspension culture is the major cell suspension culture, or otherwise cell dispersion technique is the major technique which is used for the secondary metabolite production. The secondary metabolites are produced. Secondary metabolite production is mainly focusing on the medicinal plants. So, PA, kinetin, zeatin, 2IP, anti-tease. These are the examples for cytokinins which are useful for the shoot elongation as well as cell aggregations are also caused because of this type of growth regulators. Then gibberellins. Gibberellins are used for shoot elongation as well as flowering and then fruit setting. Then abscisic acid. This is the what can I say? This is the wonder plant growth hormone, or otherwise plant growth regulator. Okay? Because this hormone plays, this regulator plays major role in plant growth ex situ as well as in situ. Because if a plant is under stress, this abscisic acid is the key hormone which is playing major role in conserving the plant's metabolic activity. So this hormone, or this plant growth regulator is used in vitro technique for promoting adventitious shoots. Adventitious shoots in the sense, if you are having an explant without any meristematic portion, if you use this hormone, you can easily get adventitious shoots. Similarly, for promoting the normal growth of somatic embryos. So because I have discussed somewhere else, we are bypassing the desiccation and then maturation of desiccation and dormancy period of an embryo. For bypassing this desiccation and dormancy period, we have the tissue culturists are depending upon this particular hormone. Thus, this abscisic acid is helpful for desiccating the embryos. Okay. So because of this usage of this hormone, we can easily bypass the 4 stages that occurs in the normal embryogenesis process. Normal embryogenesis process in the sense that 4 stages like maturation and then elongation of the embryo, desiccation of the embryo, and the dormancy of the embryo. What happens in the zygotic embryogenesis? That means the processes which are happening normally by the plant. Then similarly, this abscisic acid is also used to prevent the phenolic oxidation. Phenolic oxidation in the sense of most of the tree species and most of the plants which are present in the wild condition, they show some defense mechanism. Okay? So by that defense mechanism, if you cut a plant from a wild environment, that definitely shows some compound exudations. Okay? So to prevent that compound exudation in the nutrient medium, we use abscisic acid. Okay? So by the use of this abscisic acid and some other chemicals like PVP, polyvinyl pyrrolidine, and then ascorbic acid, these are the some supplements which are used to prevent the secondary metabolite exudation. Okay? So by controlling the secondary metabolite exudation, we can promote the growth of the plants in a better way. So there are some undefined supplements. Undefined supplements in the sense, these are all the supplements which are undefined. Undefined in the sense, there are no proper reports on what are the constituents in these supplements. Okay. If auxin is, for example, if we use an IAA, we can say it consists of only one compound. It has one type of auxin. If you use a cytokinin, it has only one type of compound. But if you use yeast extract, it has so many constituents. It has IAA, it has cytokinin, and it has some other carbon sources and some other components which are not identified. So that is why we are giving the term undefined supplements. Okay? So these undefined supplements casein hydrolysate, extract, and banana homogenate, citrus plants medium, and then activated charcoal. These are the undefined supplements used in tissue culture practices for the betterment, for the growth betterment. The more important thing is we have to show some attention in the auxin and cytokinin ratio using for the plant growth. For the better and the proper growth of plants, in the initial stages, we have initial stage in the sense while inducing the growth, initially we have to use high quantity of auxin and low quantity of cytokinin. But when the plant is getting, when the plant is get started its growth, we have to slowly increase the cytokinin ratio. So then auxin ratio will be reduced. Okay. So for root formation, high auxin ratio is needed, whereas cytokinin will be low. Similarly, for callus induction, high auxin is needed. First stage of embryogenesis, high auxin is needed. High to moderate range of auxin is needed. And for the adventitious roots from the callus, we have to use the low quantity of roots. I will share this PPT. Please have a detailed look on it. The next important factor is stalk plant physiology. So the stalk plant physiology is the underrated factor. Underrated factor in the sense most of the tissue culture practicing people won't show much attention to this. Much attention in the sense they won't show any intention, or otherwise they won't show any interest on the explant what they are collecting, because that is the major thing that is going to be culture. Okay? Because stalk plant is nothing but the explant or otherwise the plant what we are going to use. We have to show much attention in choosing the explant. We have to show much attention in choosing the explant in the sense at what stage we are collecting the explant. Okay? So there are so many factors which are playing key role in the explants. Okay? There is epigenetic expression and cell determination. Okay? So we have to be very careful in choosing the explant for their genetic expressions. Okay? We have to choose a better variety in the sense we have to pay much attention that whether the explant we are choosing is disease free, is there any genetic variation, or otherwise is it a mutant variety, or otherwise is it a normal variety. So that part we have to show much attention. Similarly, plagiotropic growth in the sense some plants have intense root system, but that plant may not have a profuse shoot system. So that part also we have to take consideration. Similarly, there are some plants which show apical dominance. So if we choose a plant which show more apical dominance in the sense the meristematic portion is dormant for a long period. If we choose that type of plant, we won't get better result. Okay? So we have to show much attention on that also. Similarly, we have to check whether the explant what we are using is in dormant stage or otherwise in active stage. If we are choosing a material, that is, if we are choosing a seed material for propagation, then we have to check whether this seed is in a dormant state or otherwise in active stage. So without knowing the stage of the seed, if you without any knowledge about the seed stage, we are cultivating that plants in the sense we won't get better result. Okay, so that part also has to be considered. So additional stock plant treatment, in the sense, sometimes we may not have sufficient quantity of the extract material. Otherwise, sometimes we have to depend upon the wild. If we are focusing on wild plant conservation, otherwise if we are focusing on endangered plant conservation, in the sense, we have to work what is available. So what is available in the sense, we have to work on the material what is available at that particular time. Okay. So at that particular time, in the sense, while we are collecting that plant maybe in the dormant stage, or otherwise that plant may have apical dominance and so on. Okay. So many hindering factors may be there and may exist at the time of collection of the plant. Okay. So in order to overcome that hindrance, we have to treat that plants. We have to treat the plants in the sense we can break the apical dominance by applying auxins. Similarly, we can break the seed dormancy by so many seed dormancy breaking techniques are available. So by applying those processes, we can easily switch over these stock plant physiological hindrances. Okay. So next part of the presentation is I'm going to show some of the conservation measures which are made by our team in the sense, my PhD, during my PhD time, myself and some of my colleagues works on the orchids of Collie Hills, and so we worked on our lab in the sense, the plant tissue culture lab which is existing in the Bhartasan University. Okay. So they mainly focus on the conservation aspect. Okay, I am here from this slide onwards. I am going to show some plants which are conserved or otherwise which are which have been shown some interest by us. So Collie Hills, we mainly focus on Collie Hills and then Pali Hills. Okay, these are the two sites worked by our team. So Dendrobium macron, this is an orchid species which is existing in the Collie Hills. This plant is being exploited for its flower. This flower is having more longevity. Longevity in the sense, this flower is fresh for about a week. So similarly, Papilipedium, Miria, Malaxis acuminata, Malaxis ready, Nervilia priniana, Oberonia, Polydata, Imbricata, then Polystachya concreta, Calantha triplicata, Acanthifibium bicolor, Lucia xylanica, Trichilteria nodosa, Gastrocalus actualis, Bulbophyllum patens, Coelogyne brevicaspa, Disperis xylanica, then Zexine longilabris, Speculum archives. And these are the possible ways by using any of the explant from these plants. So the above shown plants are the plants which are listed by our team as endangered plants available in the Collie Hills. And here I am showing some conservation measures which are taken through in vitro propagation techniques. So this is the slide which showing the micropropagation. Okay. Using a shoot bud, we can initiate a shoot and then regeneration from that. And next process is hardening. The Chrysanthemum cinerate. So this is the picture for the regeneration of chrysanthemum, and it's and this plant is mainly used for the medicinal purpose. This antimicrobial activity purpose. And Gymnema sylvestre. This is the plant which is used for controlling diabetes. So this is the micropropagation of that plant. This one is organogenesis and then somatic embryogenesis. The next plant is Hildegaudia populifolia. This is an endangered plant which belongs to the Collie Hills. So this is the micropropagation. This one is the abnormalities which shown by Hildigardia. Then this one also. This is the root injection from the Hildigardia plant. And this one is the organogenesis pictures. And this one is somatic embryogenesis. The next plant we conserved is Cymaruba glauca, soap net. This one is about the micropropagation of Cymaruba glauca. And this one is also micropropagation from axillary buds. This one is from organogenesis from the internode explant. This one is indirect somatic embryogenesis from cotyledonal explants. This is from the indirect embryogenesis from internode explant. And this one is from the cotyledon explant. This is the Dendrobium acquam, an orchid plant which is being conserved in our laboratory. And this one is my plant, Phyoides subspecies Phyoensis. This thing, some photographs of tissue culture plants, and then fully acclimatized plants. Actually, we reintroduced this plant, not properly reintroduced, but we are maintaining some clones in the Kodaikanal Hills. There is one NGO, this Waterganal Conservation Trust. We contributed our tissue cultured plants to that conservation trust, and they are maintaining this species. And this one is Anatophilus elatus. Goes to the sir and Bibi Ghosh madam. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, madam, for covering so many aspects of ecosystem and biodiversity conservation and presenting a 1.5 hour long presentation with patience, and we listen your talk. And participants, if you have any question and any discussion, any type of discussion, madam is ready to hear and answer the question. No questions in chat box, but personally, if anybody want to ask any question, madam is ready to answer. Nobody. Okay. Actually, this
I will share my presentation to the sir. Hope sir will share it in the Telegram group.
Actually, madam, this webinar is recorded by, and it will be given in your YouTube link. If anybody
Okay,
wants, then they can also. And if you want to share your PPT, that's your method.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Won't be a problem. I will share it to the sir, ma'am.
Oh, okay. You can.
Okay.
Then I am asking Dr. Das For announcing our next program or next conference and next webinars to the audience. Das sir, can you hear me? Das sir.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Thank you, madam, for your nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Next program we are going to present uh, distribution and ecology of epiphytic bryophytes, particularly on eastern Himalayan part, by Dr. Shobhik Mitra. Shobhik Mitra presently working as assistant professor of botany, the departments of botany, Taki Government College, that is Bangladesh border. Previously, he just served in the departments of botany, Darjeeling Government College, and delivered one lecture in biodiversity series 1. So we will post the link as well as flyer in the group. Please register for this webinar. And similarly, we are going to arrange one biodiversity conference in the month of December 22nd and 23rd. So please go to the group and register for presentations or participation, whatever it may be. And we will publish one book form. So if you have any kind of paper or chapter, you can send for publication. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, madam, again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all participants.
Thank you, Dr. Das. But one participant, I think, writes something in chat box. I'm trying to see. Okay. So on behalf of the total webinar committee and participants, I am giving thanks to Madam. Madam, are you in this room? I think Madam leave the room. And thanks to all the participants also. And good night. And officially this program is closed for today. Thanks to all. Good night.